If like you think that some external achievement is going to make you happy, you're going to get it and you're going to realize that it's not going to make you happy. Until you actually start to get the things that you're striving for, you're not going to realize that they aren't going to make you happy. So I almost feel like everybody needs to learn the tactics and the techniques and get the tools to actually get what they're aiming for. So like if you want to get some level of financial wealth and you think that's going to make you happy and you just want that, well, the best way to transcend that is to actually get it. I don't know how you do it unless you actually get it. And then when you get it, then you're like, fuck, I got to figure out some other things that'll work.
I'm joined by Aubrey Marcus, founder and CEO of Onnit, fellow podcaster and all-round fascinating human. Aubrey, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, brother. Happy to be here.
Very, very happy to have you on. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that are familiar with what it is that you do. But how do you describe what it is that you do on a daily basis and your life to someone who's never met you before?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, obviously you can describe the things that I've done, in my personal history that I've accomplished, founded the company Onnit, wrote the book Own the Day, done the Aubrey Marcus podcast. I mean, there's these things that I've done, but really if you're talking about me as a person, I'm just someone who's trying to learn a little bit more today. That'll make me a little bit better tomorrow than I am today, So just someone who's on the path of learning and the path of exploring and the path of asking questions and trying to figure out the small questions and the big questions.
Isn't that interesting that when asked that, one of the first things that we default to is our achievements, our quantifiable metrics of status?
Yeah, I mean that's what the typical response to that question is. Like what is it? What's your job? Like what have you done? Like what are your validations? It's reinforcing your somebodyness. As some of the spiritual teachers say, like this is what makes you somebody. You founded a company, you wrote a book, you have a podcast, you have this, wife, you have this thing, you have these kids, this is your somebodyness. And that's one level of expression, of course. And that's all fine. But the really interesting thing is like, who are you and how close are you becoming to the truth of who and what you are and how you serve? That's a really much more interesting question for me, at least. But, the other stuff is fine too.
I think it's interesting for me as well, but it's a little bit less sexy and easy to get out in a cocktail party or like when you sat around the dinner table, eh?
Yeah, you have to suss out the audience,
you got to curate.
You got to figure out who's gonna care about those more interesting issues and who's just gonna want to talk about the same old stuff, and that's kind of the people I like to surround myself with, people that we can immediately bypass past the banal recounting of the personal history, like that. All right, that happened. I can tell you what happened, but that's not what's interesting. What's more interesting is what's happening. How is not who Aubrey was, but what is the Aubrey-ing that's going on right now?
Yeah, I understand the verb to Aubrey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it's easy for people to have a conversation. Let's say someone maybe has quite subtle or contrary views, or they fall on the ends of the distribution for whatever normality is, that they have things in common in the way that they think or the way that they speak about everything with other people. And they have to choose whether they want to be honest or they want to be acceptable. And that game of how much should I open up? And as you've alluded to, one of the key words is truth. Speaking your truth forward, being as virtuous as you can, living with integrity, enacting the logos if you're going Jordan Peterson with it. And it's easy to see why people start to take on these personas, right? They start to get addicted to the acceptability and they forget the honesty until they don't know what honesty looks like anymore.
It's a bad trap because the persona is incapable of actually receiving love. It can receive praise, but you're not going to feel it because it's not you. You know what I mean? It's like when people, I think it's one of the reasons that like actors have a problem, right? Like people may love the character that they played and that may make them love that person when they see them, but the actor is just playing a character. So, you can be appreciated for your craft as an actor, but that person is not actually going to feel love, because they know they're being loved for being Gladiator. They're not being loved for
Thor, or
being
whoever it
like,
is. Yeah.
yeah, for Thor. Yeah, it's not that people are loving Russell Crowe. They're loving fucking Maximus. You know what I mean? And so we're all playing our own version of Maximus
Mm-hmm.
and then showing people this thing, and then people are loving that thing, but it's not actually landing. So we're actually denying ourselves the ability to have that genuine human connection that we really crave and really being seen, unless we lead with our vulnerability. That's the key thing that's going to allow us to really feel all the good stuff.
Do you find yourself, obviously, as you've mentioned, there are quantifiable metrics of success that can be ascribed to you, to define you. As those begin to mount up and continue to mount up, does it feel sometimes like baggage that you then need to release to not identify yourself with those things?
I think I think I do I think I can get stuck in little sticky traps for sure. But I think my sticky traps are the traps of kind of binding myself to a certain expectation of progress, an expectation of doing more. It's not that I have to shed the baggage of the past, because I almost do that automatically. Like, oh, I did that yesterday, whatever. That was yesterday. Like, I don't really celebrate the things that have happened in the past. I'm always looking towards the new thing. And so that's actually where I have more of a challenge. It's like I got the text and the call that Own the Day, Own Your Life was a New York Times bestseller, which is something that I really was hoping would happen. Yeah, thank you. So when that happened, though, I took like 1 minute to be like, that's pretty cool. And then like immediately, like I didn't give a shit and I was on to the next thing. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like, so for me, it's about slowing down a little bit and not trying to think about what the next thing is, and just being able to like be at peace with where I'm at now, as well as have that ambition to continue to go and to continue to offer my, what I have to give to the world. So yeah, for me, it's a little bit of a different challenge. It's not so much that I need to let go of the past, because I feel like I don't even take that in anyways. It's like, oh, that happened, whatever. But it's like, what am I doing now?
Yeah.
And that's where I get stuck.
Baggage from the future, bizarrely.
Yeah, exactly.
Not baggage from the past. That's interesting. Yeah. So I wonder whether or not the writing process of when you were writing your book, of whether you were more consumed with the idea of writing a good book and of potentially becoming a New York Times bestseller. And then when it happened, it was like, oh, okay, like that's done. Isn't that bizarre that our conscientiousness and our industriousness, our desire to continue to feel like we're moving forward, is almost, that is what we're working toward, rather than the achievement itself. The achievement comes and goes.
Yeah, totally. It's like, and that's why if you get stuck and that's the only thing that you think is going to make you happy, if like you think that some external achievement is going to make you happy, you're going to get it and you're going to realize that it's not going to make you happy. And I think it's one of those things that until you actually start to get the things that you're striving for, you're not going to realize that they aren't going to make you happy. So I almost feel like everybody needs to learn the tactics and the techniques and get the tools to actually get what they're aiming for. So like if you want to get some level of financial wealth and you think that's going to make you happy and you just want that, well, the best way to transcend that is to actually get it. If you think that writing a best-selling book is going to make you happy, like the best way to realize that it's not going to make you happy is to get it. It's like, I don't know how you do it unless you actually get it. And then when you get it, then you're like, fuck, I got to like,
what is it now?
I got to figure out some other things that'll work. And that's the process of kind of like retraining yourself. And I think that's a process that I'm in now. Is I still enjoy the things I do. And that's great, because I'm very fortunate that I've chosen things that I love. I love podcasting. I love writing. I love running on it. But nonetheless, I recognize that no external validation, no external thing is actually going to make me happy. It's the internal work that's going to actually level me up into a place where I have a deeper satisfaction and a deeper engagement with the world.
Isn't it interesting that we kind of need to close that loop? And that's a suggestion from yourself, because I think a lot of the time speaking to people who are quite spiritually minded, there can be quite a aloofness or people on a high horse about the fact that you should just be able to let go of your attachments or let go of your desires to achieve certain things. Whereas you're coming at it from an even more industrious perspective, which is, okay, bring the thing that you think is going to make you happy into as sharp a contrast as you can, i.e. make it happen.
Yep.
And then go from there. I think that's a really interesting way. And it's a much more final way. It's a proper full stop. Once you do
I agree, man. And I wish that I could believe that somebody could actually let this shit go without doing it. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever really seen it, because like I've seen people pretend. Like I've seen a lot of spiritual people pretend like I don't care about money, like money doesn't matter. And then the minute we engage in some kind of business deal, they get all squirrely and get all weird. And I'm like, whoa, like everything's cool. You're going to get paid. Like relax, so I've never actually seen, it's almost like they're spiritually bypassing is, the word. They're spiritually bypassing their egoic desires for something and pretending that they don't want it, or changing the game to change the rules. But I've never actually seen it work. The only time I've really seen it work is when someone actually gets that thing that they're aiming for, trains themselves, has the skills, learns the practice, gives the 10,000 hours to actually get that, and then gets it, and then realizes like, okay, I got that. And it didn't quite work. So now what's the next thing? It can't be more of the same.
Yes.
It's almost like Buddha, right? Like, would Buddha have been able to be Buddha if he didn't grow up in the palace, Siddhartha? If he didn't grow up in the palace of luxury and feasts and sex and orgies, and if he was outside the palace walls, he might have been like, man, if I could just get in that palace and have a couple feasts and a couple threesomes, man, I'll be happy as shit, and then Buddha never would have existed. But because he grew up with that and realized that didn't make him happy, then he went outside the palace walls and was like, no, like that didn't work. I did that thing. I was not happy. Now I'm doing this thing, sitting under the Bodhi tree, and I'm happy as shit, so it's interesting. And it's, I'm definitely open to other ways for people to, engage in the path. But I think the most reliable thing is to just work to get those things that you want. And when you get those things that you want, you'll be ready to take the next step of the journey, which is to realize that there's more to life than getting these external, achievements.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting way to look at it. So one of the things that I wanted to discuss today was what you think a good life looks like. And we've already touched on that. Not necessarily doing things for their sake, doing them because they feel like something that's valuable to you, not doing them for external validation. But how do you define a good life? What does a good life look like to you?
I think a good life is a life that leaves, it's a life that the signature of that life is something that you've experienced, you've really lived. First of all, you have to really live life. I think the ascetics, the people who've like denied the pleasures of the body and been in a path of renunciation where they're just kind of isolating themselves or going to a monastery, I respect that path, but I don't think that to me is the path that most of us should take. I think we're here to live on the earth, to really experience all the things, to eat the food, to try the drinks, to try the drugs, not all the drugs, but some of them at least.
Select drugs.
Select drugs. Yeah. Like do the things. Don't abuse them. Don't go wild, but like experience all the things. Like go visit the beautiful places, like dip in a cold waterfall and feel rain fall on your face, and, go to a hot desert and climb a snowy mountain and do all of these things, surf and ski and play and dance and make love and do all the things that we're here to do. I think that's a big part of it, is just to open yourself up to that. I think another part is to feel our connection, spiritually to everything around us, to that source energy, the universe, God, if your language permits it, whatever your language permits you to feel as far as a spiritual experience. I think that's a unique expression of what we're able to do here. So it's both the carnal and the spiritual. It's the physical and the astral kind of dancing together. And then the other thing is to just make sure that you've left the world and everybody you've touched a little better for you having been here. And I think that's the commitment to service, so experience everything, but also leave everybody that you touch and every place that you go a little more enriched and a little more colorful and vibrant than when you found it. And if you do that, that's a good life to me.
It's really nice guiding principles, I think.
Mm-hmm.
An interesting thing there, again, one thing that appears to be a defining characteristic of what you're talking about here is agency and not inertia, not necessarily being an ascetic as you suggested, not the relinquishing of things, but the movement, the direction towards those things. A body at motion stays at motion, and it continues to collect and move through these experiences and these adventures. I wonder how many people that lean toward a spiritual life and say that they are satisfied with simple things, that they only need, some people take pride in how little stimulus they need to be happy. And again, as you've suggested, there's some spiritual leaders and some master meditators for whom that's amazing. But I wonder how many other people are kidding themselves into believing that, because it is a very easy way to not have to push for many things in life and to allow yourself to settle at a much lower set point of experience and adventure.
I'd say most of them. I'd say, if you're asking me like, what's the ratio? I'd say that's most people. I think we're afraid. We're afraid to acknowledge what we want. We're afraid to acknowledge what's possible, because then we're afraid we might fail. We're afraid we might not get it. So it's easier to just pretend like, oh, I don't care about any of that. It doesn't matter to me, because that's just changing the value structure so that the ego can win at a certain level that the ego doesn't feel like it can win at the other level. Mm-hmm. But it's ultimately the pursuit of the thing that's always the most enjoyable anyways. And I think there's a great satisfaction in getting yourself better at whatever it is that you can do, so yeah, I think it's most people who are kidding themselves when they're saying that they don't want these things. They don't want, I think we do want these things. It's part of life, and it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to have a Ferrari. That's not necessary, but a nice car, there's lots of nice cars. It might be nice to have a nice car, like a vehicle, a mechanical vehicle that you're like, yeah, I fucking like this thing. You don't have to set your sights on some super fancy, Bentley Ghost or whatever the fuck.
Some rocket to Mars. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But know that no, I want a nice car, and I want a comfortable house that has I want to own my own place, and I want to one day I want to have a threesome, and whatever your thing is.
Do you know what it is? You've just taken the words out of my mouth. Not threesome, but one of the fans of the show, Jordan, I know he's also a fan of yours. He once told me this story about why I don't know whether he's got a written list, but I know that he has a bunch of desires that he wants to fulfill sexually, like to have sex with a Brazilian girl, and to have sex with this girl, and to have sex with that girl. And it comes back to the open loops we were talking about earlier on. And he said that he wants, once he's settled down with his wife-to-be and he's starting to build a family, he wants to be able to walk past a Brazilian girl in the street and not think, I wonder what it's like to fuck a Brazilian girl.
Yeah, totally. It's if you don't do that, it would be like imagining a certain type of fruit is forbidden, like watermelon is forbidden. Right. And then you can, because you've made an agreement with somebody that you can no longer ever have watermelon. Well, that might be fine if you've had a lot of watermelon in your life. You're like, I know watermelon. It's pretty good, but I'm good. I can remember what that's like. But can you imagine walking by a watermelon? Everybody's on a hot summer day, just pouring salt on it and just juice dripping down their mouth. And you're like, God, I can't even fucking try that thing. That really is bugging me. You know what I mean? And that's, I think that's the thing, get out there and live, really live, especially before you get in a situation that's going to restrict your ability to do that. And I think there's lots of benefits. People think I'm this open relationship champion. I'm not. It has tons of perils and tons of challenges, and it's a very hard path. But I think it is important to have a lot of experiences, like your friend says, so that if you do get in a situation where you are restricting some of the options that you might have, that you understand, like that you've gone out there and you've lived, and that you know largely what the landscape of everything looks like.
Do you think you'll be non-monogamous for the rest of your life, or have you not got an agenda at the moment?
It's a really interesting question. I mean, right now, sorry about that. That's the dog gets really excited when somebody comes to the door.
Is it not when someone talks about non-monogamy? Is that what it is? Someone mentions the word non-monogamy and the dog goes crazy.
Yeah. It's a really interesting question. I mean, right now I'm not in any like labeled relationship, but, and so we're exploring like what this framework of not having any particular relationship structure looks like. And even with Whitney, who I've gone from monogamous to open to then we separated to now we're in this kind of unlabeled experience where we're enjoying each other and, just experiencing what it's like to have a relationship beyond expectation and beyond labels. And it's really interesting, but the experiment is just continuing. And there's opportunities to explore and learn, and expectations do creep up and challenges still do creep up, but it seems like we're able to move through them faster now than we were when we had a structure. And it was like, the structure was almost like a Velcro wall, and all of our insecurities were like tennis balls. And every time we'd lob something up, they'd get stuck, but now we're still lobbing our own insecurities and our own stuff up and our own aversions and our own stuff, but it's not really sticking to anything. So we're able to kind of move through things a little bit faster. But I don't know what the next phase is beyond this, because I'm still just right in this one right now, where this is another interesting structure. So from single, there's monogamy, there's open relationship, then there's no relationship, and then perhaps there's even celibacy. That's something that I'm contemplating as well, like a elongated period of celibacy, to see what that's like. What is it like when you remove that, sexual expression from your life, and explore that? And then I don't know what the next phase beyond that would be, but I'm definitely open. Yeah. I'm really open. And that's, I think the thing that's the only message that I would give is to just not feel like there's only one way. Just be curious, be open to explore, always be looking and asking the questions like, is this serving me in the best way possible? And what am I learning from this? And that's what I'm going to continue to do. And where that takes me, who knows?
I have to say, I did a conversation on non-monogamy not long ago, and as a part of that, I couldn't help but be have visceral reactions as someone explained to me the real finer workings of how different types of non-monogamous relationships occur, and I could feel I don't know whether you want to call it programming. There's a debate here about whether it's programming or whether it's inbuilt, right? But whatever that is, that response to thinking about what would happen if you allowed someone that you cared for to, at your own, not request, but at your own allowance, to be physical with somebody else or to have feelings for some, et cetera, all of these different ways that it pieces together. And I honestly think that sounds more difficult than celibacy, but I haven't tried either, so I can't speak just yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. I mean, and I've done every different psychedelic, every different sweat lodge, and a lot of different initiation rituals and different grueling workouts and different types of things, founded company, all the different things. There's nothing that's come even close to an approximation of the challenge of being in an open relationship. I mean, if you're saying you had a visceral reaction to the description of the types of things
of someone else doing it.
Of someone else doing it. Like if I really decided to like break open the walls of privacy and share the details, I mean, the people get viscerally affected, like really viscerally affected, because I've been in places where I've been crawling around on the ground, not knowing if I should vomit or cry or like run or like punch a wall, or like there's so much feeling. And yeah, like you said, some of it I think is conditioning and some of it is perhaps innate programming. I think largely, if I had to put the scale, I'd say it's largely conditioning, just based upon some of the ancestral and tribal kind of arrangements that we can find in different groups around the world. But regardless, like, it's a brutal path, and and it's way harder than you might think, because
in your book, you say about it, right? Dry retching on the floor for however many, like half an hour or longer, or however long it was. Like, and the maddest thing was, it doesn't surprise me at all. Incredibly challenging. Yeah. That's to say the least, but incredibly beautiful too. And that's the thing, because through all those challenges, that's parts of yourself that you're breaking open so that you can re-heal. It's like if a bone forms wrong, you have to actually re-break it for it to form correctly, so that you're anatomically correct. Like, some parts of our ego have been formed wrong. And so you almost have to re-break the bone of the ego to then allow it to heal in its proper way. But the re-breaking of the ego over and over and over again, and the smashing of all of that, it's a hell of a process, man. But you start to get the hang of it. You start to realize, okay, here it comes. Here comes the fucking gigantic nut kick from the universe. Let me hold my breath. Here's my testicles are going to be about throat high here in a few minutes. And then just, this is the way it's going to go. And you start to just be ready to learn the lessons and know that the growth is going to come on the other side of that. But it's been probably my greatest teacher of all the things. It's what's allowed me to learn the most about myself and heal the most of my own needs for validation and my own insecurities. And I'm not like, hallelujah, I'm healed, but I'm a hell of a lot closer than when I started. Isn't that interesting that one of the greatest teachers of all of the different things that you've done, all of the different experiences that you've had, hasn't been something that you've done in solitude?
Right. Yeah. It's been done in conjunction with the partner, with Whitney in particular. And, the other relationships have taught me different things, and some of those things have been valuable, but it's the deep emotional investment that I've had in Whitney and the challenges that have come from that deep emotional investment that have really brought the greatest level of growth. Stress, any type of stress creates adaptation, and too much stress can create trauma that you don't adapt from. So if you overtrain in the gym, you'll actually get hurt and not get stronger. And I think we've definitely put ourselves in positions where we've fucked it up and overstressed ourselves and created traumatic patterns. But nonetheless, you can learn to unwind those and learn to take the space and time to heal those. But I think a well-executed open relationship would have the pacing and calibration, are two of the words that they use a lot. The pacing and calibration to know that you're opening up to challenge at a rate that, is actually just going to allow you to move through pretty consistently without having to go backtrack and then unpack a lot of trauma. But we were doing this kind of blind. We were just kind of figuring that out as we go and doing our very best. So, no fault on either side. It's just, that's the way it unfolded. But if we were going to do it again, we'd do it a hell of a lot better than the first time.
Have you ever thought about doing a course or contributing to a body of knowledge somehow?
That's going to be my third book for sure. And it's going to be about, what love, in relationship can look like, and how to reimagine love and relationship. And so, I'm kind of holding off on that right now. Whitney is completely holding that down. She's offering coaching. She's got a great platform right now. So anybody interested, you can follow her at WhitNLove, WhitNLove. And she's sharing all the wisdom from our relationship and offering coaching. And she has a podcast called True Sex and Wild Love with Whitney Martin. So she's really kind of diving into that right now. And I'm focused more on mindset and the hero's journey for now, because quite frankly, my my own journey in learning about love is I'm still writing. I'm still writing my understanding. I'm still understanding what it looks like to be in this no relationship. And then ultimately, like I said, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be engaging in a period of celibacy and learning like, okay, what's that path look like? And like, then ultimately trying to put it all together. But I'm not in any position right now to say anything with any kind of definitive wisdom,
Authority.
Or authority on that, because I haven't really allowed all of this to set in and explore it. I can certainly offer a lot of advice from where I've been so far. So people who are, interested in opening their relationship, but, Whitney's been there right along with me for this whole journey, and she's got a great perspective. So kind of allowing her to take that thrust of information as it is now. And as mine continues to mature, that'll be a big focus for me in the next 5 years or so.
That's cool. So getting back to our discussion on the good life, we've talked about some guiding principles and some things that people can cerebrally keep to give them a North Star they're aiming toward. But anyone who's read James Clear's book this year, anyone who hasn't, please go and read Atomic Habits because it's fantastic. But he has this wonderful quote in there which says, "We do not rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems." And I think that we need structures and habits and routines to instantiate the things that we want to do. So how do you instantiate the things that make a life good to you? What are the structures that you lay your life upon, or some habits and some routines that assist you to ensure you're doing that?
Well, I think you got to take care of the body. That's what Own the Day, Own Your Life, my first book, was about. Like, you got to take care of the body. Like, it's the low hanging fruit. Like if the body's out of alignment, your whole mindset's going to be out of alignment. Everything's going to be out of alignment. You're going to be fighting an uphill battle. So handle that shit. There's a lot of intricacies, but it's largely a solved problem. Like, stop fucking eating sugar, like get some sleep, move throughout the day, get some sunlight, like drink some salt water. Yeah. Hydrate. There you go. Like you're doing it. Like, take care of your shit, and like get the basics down. And it doesn't mean you don't need fancy supplements and things like that. You can add those if you want to improve performance and all that, but it's just about like handling the basics. And then from there, I think it's about a personal ethos. And that ethos is, if I see something that I'm afraid of, or that's something that I know that there's work that I could do, I head towards it, not away from it. And that's just a personal ethos. So that doesn't mean like actual danger. It doesn't mean if there's like a black widow spider in my shed, I'm going to go try and touch it. That's actual danger that could hurt me. Like, I'm talking about emotional fears, or these things that I'm afraid of exposing, some insecurities that I have. The ethos that I have, my own warrior ethos, is like, oh, I'm scared of that. That'll be hard. Okay, I got to go do it. And that's, again, why I'm doing this. I'm probably going to do this. I don't want to commit 100%, but why I'm likely going to do this celibacy thing is just because I know it's going to be fucking hard for me.
The people on the internet now will have thought there'll be something clipped out of this that's just you saying the word celibacy 5 times.
Right.
The people on the internet will believe that it's that. So, to interject there's this quote that I really love, and you might have heard it might not before. And it's from Catherine David's-daughter, who's a CrossFit Games athlete. And the way that she talks about discomfort is similar to yourself. And she refers to it as, she says, lean into discomfort as if you'd invited it through the door. And I really like that analogy. The fact that as discomfort comes towards you, you lean into it. You don't shy away. You don't stand your ground. You lean into it. I really love that visual.
It's the only way. It's like, if you run away from your discomfort and it's that thing is going to chase you down like a grizzly bear. And you know what a grizzly bear does when it catches you? It starts to eat you while you're alive, asshole first. That's what a grizzly bear does. So go ahead, run away from your fears and run away from those things you're scared of. But that grizzly bear's coming. And when it gets you, it's going to eat you, asshole first. So figure it out. Your choice, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Keep running, or stand your ground and face it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've got look after the body. We've got this ethos of facing up to things that you're scared of. What else?
I would say community is another huge piece, like cultivating and maintaining a healthy community. And that's people that you're comfortable being real vulnerable around, and people who you can share everything, and people who see you. Like, I don't think we're able or capable of doing this thing alone. It's too hard. Life is just too hard to do it all by yourself. And I think people put so much emphasis on your partner or like your lover or this one person. But really, I think that emphasis needs to be spread much, much wider out to your entire community. It's your community that supports you, because relationships come and go. And that's why I think people are so devastated. It's like, she was my everything. Well, you fucked up. If she was your everything, you fucked up. Because that's like not a good strategy.
It's your trading portfolio entirely 100% in one stock, or like 90% in one stock.
Right. But that's the fantasy and the fairy tale that we're taught. You're my everything. You complete me. Okay, good luck. Good luck with that. Hope it goes perfect for you. Don't look at the statistics, because it's a really risky bet you're making. You know what I'm saying? But if you have it diversified to a wide group of people that'll all share and love and vulnerability, and things will get fucked up with them too. Like, stuff will happen with your friends. Like, it's not like they're infallible. Like, even friendships sometimes go through periods of fluctuation, less commonly so, but it happens. So, but like, if you have a genuine community and many points of people who that you can talk to about anything, it's going to help so much. And I think so that, to me, is actually, if we're talking, it's kind of interesting, because book 1 is about the body. Book 2 is about the mind and the journey of awakening your consciousness and mapping that to the hero's journey. Book 3 is going to be about love and relationship. And book 4 is going to be about community. Because I think those are like the 4 pillars of a good life. Take care of the body, understand the mind and how to open it up and look into your shadow, find the way that you can align yourself to love and relationship that's in best accord with yourself, and then cultivate and build the community. And I think those are really the principles. And then, book 5 is actually going to be about, all right, now how do we apply this, everything that we've just talked about so far? How do we apply this globally to the whole world? Like, what would a world look like if we embraced all of these principles? And that's kind of I imagine that being more of a utopian fiction. I'm gonna have to really sharpen my pencil to get my fiction game right.
I think you're going to, yeah.
Yeah, but that's really a really clear plan for me, and it really exemplifies those things that are the most important to me in my life.
It is, when you break life down into its component parts like that, it can seem so simple.
It typically is. That's the thing. It's just simple, but hard. That's the truth. Like, even like the deepest spirituality is so simple, but so hard. Like, you listen to Ram Dass's teacher. He had his, Maharaji. He said one thing. He said, love everyone, tell the truth. All right, that's simple. Love everyone, tell the truth. Well, that's fucking hard. Love everyone, tell for real. Like, if you're going to do that, that's hard, And then, like, Ram Dass says, love everything, not every being, but everything. I love my pain. I love my wheelchair. I love, like, it's the eradication of preference, even, because you're loving everything. Oh, well, that's simple, but fucking good luck. Good luck. Pack a lunch, because that shit's not going to be easy to get to. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of the deep wisdom is very simple, but doesn't mean that it's easy to execute.
It's something that people probably get quite confused by. The fact that a lot of simple things are seen as easy, day-to-day life. Doing something simple should be easy. But as you've said there, because simplicity has no room for, or limited room for nuance, there's limited room for you to allow that ego to come in and for it to change the rules. If you had love everything, but it was written out and every individual thing you had to love was stated and the document was like the size of a law book, there'd be slippage in between each of those things.
Yeah,
but it's not. The simplicity is where the difficulty is derived from.
Mm. You said that beautifully, man. That was very, very well articulated. And I think that's absolutely right. Like it doesn't leave you any room. Tell the truth. Love everyone. Fuck. Well, what does tell the truth even mean? Is that, I'm like, how truthful is the truth? Well, it's the truth is the truth. I mean, we're talking capital T here, right? Like we're not making like exceptions with lowercase t, which is tell like the convenient, version of it. It's like, no, tell the truth. Love everyone, love everything. Like there's not a lot of room. There's not a lot of room to wiggle around. And, and that's why they're so powerful.
Talking about the truth, it's something which comes up all the time. I was doing a political podcast. I was in London on a political podcast and ended up talking about the truth and why it's so important for us. People layer a lot of, personas, and they're able to hide their truth very successfully. I know I've done it incredibly well, very skillfully at some points in my life, and it's taken a lot of work to unpack what that truth is. I wondered whether you had any advice for someone who has potentially layered on top of their truth so many personas that they're struggling to find it anymore.
Well, you gotta catch on to yourself. And like, I'm not much different than you. I recognize how fucking slippery I am, because like the ability to like justify and rationalize and like create a story to make this truth, quotation mark, truth,
lowercase,
lowercase t, quotation mark, asterisk, italic, truth that you're expressing. Like my ability to do that is really quite remarkable. Like I can be really slippery with how I can massage things and how I can project things. And there's some studies done that show that like 55% of what you're communicating is received by body language, 35% is received by tonality, and like less than 10% is received by the actual words that you say. So you could even be saying the words, but expressing them in an untrue way, that's being manipulative. And so it's like, you have to catch on to yourself. You have to like beyond your, like realize like, okay, I see you there, Aubrey, being slippery and fucking doing that thing. Yeah. I see you projecting this air of confidence, even though your words are, quite vulnerable, or vice versa. Like you just have to kind of catch on to yourself and realize what you're doing. And, that takes the eradication, first of all, of shame. Like I think that's the big thing that limits us from seeing our truth and being onto ourselves, is being ashamed of the truth. And then also we have to let go of our desire to selfishly manipulate reality for our own interest. Like truth is love. Tell the truth and love everyone is actually the same thing, because you can't love someone without telling them the truth. It's a temporary ameliorant. It's like it's like the loving thing to do is not to give somebody, a candy bar. It's to give somebody like a healthy meal.
Do you know how many times I use that exact analogy when I'm talking to people? And I relate it back to Jordan Peterson's Be Friends with People Who Want the Best for You. Be friends with people that want the best for you is not tell people what they want to hear. It's very often tell people what they don't want to hear. And some of my best friends, I can identify the people who have my best interests at heart because they don't swallow my bullshit wholesale or part sale or fucking like micron scale. They don't let me get away with it. And yeah, the analogy is like a child wants ice cream every night. Like that's not what's good for it, but that is what it wants. But that doesn't mean that's what it should get.
Right. Exactly. And it's just having the patience, even if there's a little tantrum. It's like, I want ice cream for dinner, and you're like, I'm sorry, sweetie, like we're going to have fucking chicken for dinner, and it's like, no, like you have to just hold that space and say, chicken is best
tonight.
You know what I mean? Tonight. Yeah. And maybe someday there'll be ice cream, for sure. But like, yeah, it is having the ability to to share that with somebody and have them receive it, and to be able to withstand those temporary reactions that people might have, because you know that it's the most loving thing that you can do, because it's not enabling them to continue on their own path of delusion. We have to understand that our purpose here is to wake up to the truth of who we are, and the all of the truth that's all around us, because that's all the love that's all around us too. And so if we're all here to wake up to that truth and we're shielding that truth from somebody, we're doing them a great disservice.
It's a lot easier to be a good friend to someone else than it is to yourself, though. Like the perspective that we have when talking to someone else. I recently wrote an Instagram post about this, about the fact that the likelihood of you ensuring that your dog completes its course of antibiotics is over 90%. The likelihood of you ensuring that you complete your course of antibiotics is under 50%. And it tells us something very interesting about how easy it is to care for others and how difficult it is to care for ourselves. But this analogy that a friend told me that stuck with me is when you're in an airplane, why are you told to put your oxygen mask on first? Because if you're suffocating, you're of very little use to everybody else around you.
That's true. Yeah, to be of service, you have to be fit for service. That's what my late spiritual teacher, Don Howard, used to always say. And that's the mastermind group that I formed too, the Fit for Service Mastermind, based along that principle. Like, you have to take care of yourself, and you have to be overflowing with your own abundance of energy, love, time, resources, everything, in order to actually be of true, real service to anybody or the world. And it begins with yourself. I once had someone said, I forget where it came from, but someone says that in a healthy relationship, instead of serving someone from your cup, you actually serve them from the overflow that fills the saucer around the cup. Mm-hmm. So that no one's actually ever drinking from your own cup of your own love and your own resource and energy, but you have so much that it's always overflowing like a fountain and filling the saucer, and there's plenty to drink from the saucer. You know, and then that's like a really good metaphor, I think, for how we have to take care of ourselves, because the moment our cup's empty, well, we're not going to be of any use to anybody. You know, we're first of all going to be miserable, but second of all, we're not going to be helpful to anybody else either.
It's a Jordan Petersonism as well, isn't it? To pick up the heaviest weight that you can and bear it, and then continue to do that. And you may be able to, at first off, carry your own weight, and then carry the weight of the people around you, and then carry the weight of your community. It's this hilarious idea that I think progressive overload is king in every domain, from strength training to mind training.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Yeah, it's another great way to put it.
So before we go, Aubrey, obviously we've got your books out at the moment. I want to know, and I'm sure a lot of people that are listening will want to know, what are you working on right now? Like, what's a day in terms of projects look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the podcast is something that I really love. So that's the Aubrey Marcus podcast. And then the Fit for Service Mastermind I just recently mentioned, that's been just blown away all the expectations of like forming a real community around the ideas. You know, onnit, of course, continues to grow and beat its drum and its message about, you know, being a little bit better tomorrow than you are today and helping the body. And then, you know, I'm going to start writing my book, my next book coming up, you know, pretty soon here as well. And so that'll start to take up a lot of time. So there's always a lot of things in the works, but, you know, nothing too wild. And then there's the daily Instagram posts and everything that I put out on that channel as well. So just kind of doing all the things, man, just doing all the things and just trying to learn and grow.
Yeah.
Back to what I said at the start.
Very interestingly, we actually, I think, have been linked in. The reason that we've got this podcast happening is because of Ross, one of the guys who's in your group. And
oh, beautiful.
And episode 12 on this podcast was with mutual friend and beautiful voice, Mr. Corey Allen.
Oh, nice.
So Corey's been on. And yeah, man, I think one of the things that does strike me as very interesting is when someone is working incredibly hard and incredibly ruthlessly to try and sort out their own shit, and you have a very single sort of linear focus in terms of how all of these products align. You know, you see some entrepreneurs or professionals or personalities, however you want to name it, and you look at the portfolio of things that contribute to make up their life in terms of where they invest their time. And you think these are quite piecemeal here. You have something from over there and something from over there, and I don't really see how this is one cohesive unit, but I can't really say that for yourself. And as well, you know, this episode is not brought to you by Onnit. However, the only nootropic that I've ever used, which I back, is Alpha Brain. And that's
Thanks, brother. Appreciate that.
Honestly, man, it is when I haven't used it tonight because when my housemate, I was a bit tired upstairs, my housemate was like, "Oh, why do you have a coffee and an Alpha Brain?" I was like, "It's 8 p.m. I'm not a psychopath. Like, I'm not going to have a coffee at 8 p.m. But yeah, when I need that extra little kick, it really does help. And, you know, I think that having someone who is in your position, who is pushing a more holistic view of the mind, a more complete view of how we should progress as ourselves, I think it's something that's very worthwhile. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you achieve over the coming years.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that, man. And I always appreciate someone who has introspection and insight and surprises me with their own, you know, mental machinations. So keep doing what you're doing, man.
Thank you, man.
Doing good work.
Everything that we've spoken about today, from Aubrey's book to his Instagram and his fantastic podcast, will be linked in the show notes below. Of course, Aubrey, it's been awesome, man.
Yeah, likewise, brother.